All right, we're going to dig into one of the oldest rivalries on the planet. You know the one, dogs versus cats. But what if I told you this whole epic feud is actually just a family squabble? One that's been going on for, about 55 million years. Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, we see them as total opposites, right? The loyal, goofy dog, the cool, independent cat. But their story, it doesn't actually begin with a rivalry. No, it starts with a single shared ancestor. That's right, they're long-lost cousins. And, spoiler alert, their eventual family reunion was anything but happy. So to really get this, we have to go way, way back. I want you to picture the world 55 million years ago. The dinosaurs? They're gone. And mammals, well, they're finally getting their moment in the sun, just exploding in diversity and spreading all across the globe. And right in the middle of all that is this little guy. Meet Dormaalocyon latouri. He's our main character, a small, tree-climbing critter just doing his thing in ancient Europe. He had absolutely no idea he was basically the great-great-great, well, you get it, granddaddy of a massive, massive dynasty. From this one humble creature, two of the most iconic animal families we know were about to emerge. So, as the descendants of our little Dormaalocyon started to spread out, the family tree hit a major fork in the road. It wasn't like they decided to go their separate ways, of course. It was all driven by geography and just millions of years of slow, steady evolution, setting these two groups on completely different paths. Okay, and here it is, the crucial moment. Right around 43 million years ago, this is when the whole carnivorous order officially splits into two groups. The feliforms, which just means cat-like animals, and the caniforms, the dog-like ones. A family literally divided by time and by continents. And you can see exactly how that huge separation happened. The ancestors of our modern dogs, they made this incredible trek across the Bering Land Bridge into what's now North America. That's where they started their own unique evolutionary story. Meanwhile, back in the old world, the cat ancestors stayed put, spreading out and evolving all across Asia and Europe. So just think about that. For millions and millions of years, these two branches of the family evolved in complete isolation from each other. You've got the dog-like crew over in North America and the cat-like crew over in Asia. But that was all about to change, and in a really, really dramatic way. About 20 million years ago, the feliforms, the cat family, did something pretty incredible. They turned around and crossed the exact same land bridge their cousins had used all those millions of years before, but they went the other way, arriving in North America. And for the very first time since that great split, the two families came face to face. And let me tell you, this was not a happy family reunion. It was basically an invasion. The feliforms that showed up were what we call hyper-carnivores. Think sleek, fast, incredibly efficient killing machines, and they hunted alone. The native caniforms, the dog-like animals, by comparison, they just weren't on the same level. They were completely and totally outmatched. The fallout was just brutal. Suddenly there was this superior predator competing for all the same food. And a lot of the native caniform species, even the really formidable ones like the bear dogs, they just couldn't hang. They were driven to extinction. It was a massacre. Honestly, the dog family was on the verge of being completely wiped out in its own homeland. But, evolution has a funny way of responding to pressure. It's adapt or die, right? The caniforms that survived knew they couldn't compete one-on-one, so they had to change the rules of the game. This intense life-or-death competition forced them to develop a totally revolutionary new strategy for survival. And their solution was absolutely brilliant. Teamwork. The caniforms started cooperating, hunting in groups, in packs. Think about it. A single dog ancestor stood no chance against a cat ancestor. But a whole group of them? Oh yeah. Now they could coordinate. They could chase down much, much larger prey. And they could defend their food from scavengers. They basically became something way more powerful than the sum of their parts. And this strategy was so unbelievably successful that it still defines many caniforms today. I mean, look at the African wild dog. On its own, it's pretty vulnerable. But as a pack, their hunt success rate is the highest of any large carnivore on the planet. This social behavior, this deep instinct to form a pack, it was forged in the fire of that ancient competition, all those millions of years ago. Okay, so we've seen how that ancient conflict literally shaped the fundamental nature of dogs and cats. But what do those two families actually look like today? Well, the answer is probably a whole lot weirder than you think. So, let's take a look. When I say dog family or caniformia, who pops into your head? Wolves, foxes, your pet dog, right? That's the obvious stuff. But trust me, this family is so much bigger. Okay, you ready for this? Bears. They're caniforms, seals and walruses? Yep, them too. Weasels, raccoons, and even the ridiculously tough honey badger, they are all, evolutionarily speaking, on team dog. It's just this incredibly diverse group that's adapted to live everywhere, from deep forests to the Arctic seas. All right, so what about the other side of the family? Team cat, the feliforms. You know the big names: lions, tigers, cheetahs, house cats. But this family tree has a really shocking member that kind of breaks all the stereotypes. And here it is, the big twist. Hyenas. That's right. The laughing, scavenging, very dog-looking hyena is not a dog at all. Genetically, it's a feliform. It belongs firmly on the cat side of the family tree, even though it evolved to look and act a lot like a dog. Isn't that wild? Mind-blowing? So if we boil it all down, it's like this. Team dog, the caniforms, is way more diverse in its body shapes and lifestyles. I mean, you go from a tiny little weasel all the way up to a massive polar bear. But team cat, the feliforms, while maybe less varied in shape, well, that group contains a much higher concentration of the world's great powerful apex predators. It's just an incredible story, isn't it? 55 million years of evolution, of competition, of survival. But this ancient, incredible legacy is now facing its single greatest threat, and it's one that only showed up in the last few thousand years. Us. Just look at the Asian lion. On the left, that's where they used to live, a massive range from Greece all the way to India. And on the right, that's the range today, a single tiny dot in a park. We have squeezed these magnificent animals out of 99% of their ancestral home. And for some, it's already too late. The Caspian tiger, this huge, powerful feliform that used to roam the river valleys of Central Asia, it was hunted into complete extinction. And don't think this happened in some distant, dusty past. 1970. That is within the lifetime of so many of us. We are living right now in the chapter of this 55 million year story where these incredible, ancient evolutionary lines are just being erased forever. So here we are. The story that began with a tiny little creature in a tree has led us all the way to this moment. After 55 million years of migration, competition, and incredible adaptation, the future of both of these great families, the cousins, the rivals, it all depends entirely on the actions of just one species. So the real question is, what will the next chapter be?